I'll grab the disclaimer.
All right, looks like we're live. We've got me and Keith on assignment this week, and then we've got Amanda up here graciously joining us to quarterback things to make sure that all things go smoothly. And so,
And of course they aren't. So that goes to show.
well, I
Pretty
think you're doing
smooth,
pretty
pretty
good.
smooth. Alrighty. Let me just. It's also been a minute. Hello, everyone.
So Keith, where are you today? You're on mute. Let's see, Keith, you're still on mute. I don't know if you can.
I'm off mute.
There we
I
go.
am, yeah, I couldn't figure out the mute button. I am sitting in the yard of the Washington Monument. I'm in town to celebrate the life of one of our clients, and I thought I would just enjoy a little bit of the city while I was here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And yeah, the celebrating, excuse me, guys. I got something in my throat. Celebrating the life of a client. That's something that we get to do all the time.
This is a second generation client, and in this family we have third generation clients, and I found the actual start date of our business relationship to be January the 7th, 1988.
Okay.
That's impressive, isn't it?
And so has this client been around that long?
No, that's the starting of the first generation.
Yeah, that's pretty special. All right, and hi from my in-laws' lake house. If you're going to have a lake house, my recommendation is to have in-laws who have a lake house. If you could figure that out, it is a wonderful, a fantastic plan. But I'm up at Lake Tippy in Kosciuszko County, and this is just a great place to be. But there's a lot going on in the markets that I think we might get to if we have time later on today. But one of the things we were talking about earlier in the week was just some of the amazing things that happen at Gimbal Financial, some of the ridiculous things. And where I think about this stuff is in relation to just being in business. And if you were to think about your profession, whatever your profession is or was, and you tie that into your value system, what you're all about, what makes you tick. I'm curious, have you seen ridiculous stuff happen? And we've seen some just great stuff happen in Gimbal Financial's life since what year was that, Keith? 1988?
91 was when the predecessor ISU Securities began, and before that, I was an employee of Hilliard Lyons. But in 1991, we kicked off this independent firm.
Yeah, that is amazing. I joined Keith in 2003, right around now. And I think, Amanda, when did you join?
I joined the world in 1993, if that tells you anything. And then, then
Good
I
job.
joined
That's just
Gimbal.
straight up hurtful right there.
Just thought I'd throw that in there. But that also goes to show I'll be 31 this year. So it's been around for, that just goes to show, I mean, the fact that we have third generation clients with that particular family is just sweet. And then I have been with Gimbal since 2016 to answer your question.
Yeah. And so we've had a lot of really great adventures. And, you know, one just amazing story to me was part of this business, and maybe part of the business that you were in, you had to deal with legal stuff, and the legal stuff in the investment world is governed by a couple different bodies. You're either governed by a group called FINRA, or you're governed by the SEC, or maybe even the state that your business is in. But we have great help that has walked alongside of us for years. And our good friend Donna, she was with us, I think, since 2011, and she retired this year. And when she called me to say, "Hey, Doug, I'm retiring," she was our legal, our compliance consultant. She was a great lady. She is a great lady. She's out of San Diego, and she called to say she was retiring. And I thought, oh no, we're going to have to go on the hunt, or we're going to have to take a look at our options again. And it was that afternoon that Gimbal's good friend Monica released a call to one of her friends, Sue, and she says, "Sue, you ought to call Doug and talk to him about his compliance." And she left me a voicemail that was just like, "Hey, if you're ever in need, or if you want to look at your options, give me a call." And guys, same day, same day that happened. I mean, that's amazing. And so Sue's been with us now, and she is just incredible to work with. And so these types of things in your business, you can look at and you could say, "Oh, that's an amazing coincidence," or you could just look at it as, "Hey, somebody is watching my back," and it's such a good feeling. So, and any stories come to mind for you guys, either recent ones or story in the past that you just think is ridiculously amazing?
Well, I think the regulatory thing is hard for people to understand. It, it theoretically is there for our clients, but Casey and I were walking over here to find this seat, and we had the sidewalk blocked literally 10 minutes ago by a Park Service little utility vehicle and two trash cans on it. Okay, and I had something I needed to throw away, which was pretty funny. I go, "You mind if I throw my trash in there?" And what was going on was a regulatory problem. The Park Service people are having problems with the city of Washington, D.C., and so they were navigating their own situation to get those trash cans moved from one place to the other. And I'd hate to believe it, but I'd have to tell you, I think a lot of rules that we have to obey to serve you are things that are motivated in that kind of thing, where there's vying regulators that are angry with each other. The rules get put in place not to serve you, and they cause us nightmares. And I think it's just by the grace of God that we've had provision for that. And I think it's probably 32 years ago where I changed my attitude towards all that. I personally decided that I'm just going to serve those regulators and have an attitude of love towards them. And so even yesterday, we were stirred on the way here to stop in Little Washington, is what they call it, Washington, Pennsylvania, and we had lunch with one of our former regulators.
Yeah, yeah. Our good friend from LPL, who's just a great advisor to us over the years. And Keith has done a nice job keeping in touch with him. So Amanda, do you have anything ridiculous that jumps out to you?
Well, I think about, Sue comes back to my mind because Monica has become a good friend of mine over the years through one of your friends, Doug, David, and even how that came to be and how our friendship has flourished over the last 4 years, and the fact that she's maintained such a strong friendship with Sue. It brings a smile to my face. I giggle about it because it's just things you just can't make up, so it's just a real blessing. And getting to know Sue on a more personal level, we had never had that opportunity before, or I didn't personally. And so it's just nice to have someone in our corner who we can call when we've got a question, and she helps us feel at peace and just confident in what we're doing, which is just, you can't put a price on that. It's just such a blessing.
This industry tends to have really great people to work with, and a couple of these folks that we've mentioned, I mean, they work for maybe the largest independent RIA, registered investment advisor, in the Midwest. And so to have these gals as friends has just been wonderful. And as we think about some of these ridiculous things that we've seen in business, a couple other people came to mind, like to be able to be trained by some of the best investment strategists in the world is pretty humbling for a guy from Muncie to be able to grasp that we could sit under William O'Neill or Mark Minervini and learn from them, and it never gets old. I mean, every morning I look forward to seeing what's going on in the marketplace through the lens of the training that we've learned from just world changing world leaders who've helped change the investment landscape.
That's really humbling to see the opportunities that have been afforded to us. And I can give you guys some old school stories of how this thing really started up, and like unexplainable that a CEO of one of the largest credit unions in the country would ask a 26-year-old to start a broker dealer from scratch, which it was probably 1987 when he asked me that, and there wasn't an internet, right? And so to have the courage to say, yeah, I can do that, which I didn't even know what it was, but that was my answer. Yeah, I can do that. I figured I could figure it out. And so it took me 3 or 4 years before 91 to figure out how to start a broker dealer. In that evolution of things, as crazy as it sounds, a very substantial organization, I haven't checked on it lately, the Securities Industry Association, it's based here in Washington, D.C. They invited this 30-year-old at the time to join this committee. So I'd come out here to D.C. and be on a committee. I didn't know anything. I just acted like I did around all these guys. And when I look back on it, I don't know if they knew any more than me. They just were better actors than me. But then we kicked off ISU Securities around the first week or so of August of 1991. I bet I didn't have $5,000 in my bank. I was engaged to be married 90 days later. I think maybe had enough to pay for the honeymoon, but I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was telling my daughter some cold calling stories. This person's life that we're coming out here to celebrate with, I cold called and asked them if they wanted to be a bond, buy a bond, not be a bond. And a cold call is you pick up the telephone and somebody, a complete stranger, asks them to do something that they didn't want to do before you called them. And the young lady at the time said, yeah, I think I'll do that. And she bought a very minimal amount of an investment from me, and that started a friendship. Well, I didn't have enough of that business going on really to know how I was going to make it through the end of the year in 1991. And I kept the article for a time. I can't find which file it's in. Can you explain to me why that was August of 1991? We were with the phone company credit union, and then in September of 1991, Ameritech, which was one of the phone companies, made one of their first early retirement offers to their employees ever. And I began working, I think, on average 12 hours a week, 6 days a week, probably for the next 6 months.
Yeah, and those clients you've been helping for 30 years. It's been pretty cool. Yeah, well, we've had a lot of just amazing stuff happen, and the stories are all sponsored by people. I mean, it's the people business, whether we're doing business to business with clients or business to business with our advisors that we are bringing on as associates. And so it's been a pretty cool ride. Anything else to add, or do you guys want to take a shift and take a look at the markets?
I got a couple cool old school stories if you want me to ramble on.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when we eventually had a disagreement with the executives at that credit union, and unfortunately I had to part ways with them, and I love them. We just couldn't continue in the same direction. And so once we kind of negotiated how I was going to part ways, I was set to work 8-hour days, and I could spend, after I think I committed 2 more weeks to them when I gave them my resignation. And it's kind of, a kingdom divided against itself can't stand situation. Is I'm trying to manage 2 different mindsets at that point. And so one of the things I had to do was to find an office for Gimbal Financial. And I had a reference from one of our former board of directors, Mike, who gave me a real estate guy. And Jeff was ambitious as all get out, and he lined up 22 visits in one day for an office for us. And I had no idea what that meant, but that's not a good plan for any human. And we ended up driving all around the north side of Indianapolis. And the office we first started Gimbal in was number 22. And I ended up having a major influence on the owner of the guy that we were subleasing from. He called me one day and said, I'm going to quit running my business because I think I should run it the way that you guys run yours, and I don't have the autonomy to do that. But in that process, we signed a 2-year lease with them because I was a little concerned about signing a 4 or 5 year lease. And the lease was supposed to step up like 10 or 15%. And because of the friendship we established with him, he kept the rest of the lease at the same price for the remainder of the lease. And then the locations over the years have been just mind-boggling how those things have been provided and the people that we come across in those. And so that's another variable that I just can't hardly explain to you how significant that was. But I would suggest that if whatever you're doing, if you pay attention to your location, something dramatic and unexplainable can happen.
Yeah, that's a good word. And looking for a place, moving, all that stuff is a pain in the neck. In 2000, was it 19 that we moved to Gimbal's current location, and it is another story of it just being provided. It just was amazing how that story worked out. And there will be great stories in the future, I'm sure. But if you're a small business person and you're watching this, you know the pains of trying to find a place for your business and then leasing and then hoping that you have the revenues to keep it going in those early years. And so we feel your pain. And I'll just go ahead and open it up. If you ever need a conference room, if you're one of these people, if you ever need a conference room and you don't have one, just give Amanda a call and we'll lease you a conference room for free.
There you go.
That reminds me of one more story, Doug, that I gotta tell you. The day we left and started Gimbal, we had nowhere to go. The lease hadn't been signed yet, and we needed to. What we agreed to is we wouldn't take any records with us, but we didn't agree to not call our former clients because there was no compete. And so we needed a place to congregate because cell phones weren't as powerful as they were. And Mike, one of our friends, gave us his office space on the northwest side of Indianapolis. We called in Connie Tyner, Aaron White, Jill Pinkston. I can't remember who all was calling clients that first day from Mike's office. And within 8 hours, we had left a message or called 100% of our clients the day we kicked off Gimbal Financial. Amazing. And I can't really
10 clients. That. You called them. Oh.
Yeah. We called both of them.
Laborious.
Or as Casey's husband says, both. Yeah. Very crazy.
Yeah, and that is a great story. I've heard that one a few times. I love it. And we could just keep going on. There's just a bunch of amazing things that happen when you rally people together, whether it's your business or your organization, wherever you find yourself in life. I think the key ingredient are people, and the locations are kind of spice or sugar. But it's the people, it's the heart of it that really matters.
I think on that thought, I probably shouldn't finish without saying that the disagreements that happened in the 1996 and 97 with those leaders at that credit union, those were all healed and restored, and have become very, very rich friendships to points that I can't even talk about them without crying. So
Yeah.
that I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, which is unexplainable to most situations.
Yeah, one of those guys Keith hired to train me to help me work better with Keith, and that was pretty special. Again, folks in business are giving people. At the end of the day, they're out there to help and serve others, and so pretty great stuff. Pretty great stuff. I wanted to highlight a couple of things. Oh, who do we have here, Keith?
Casey Tyner.
Sorry, I muted it. It's Casey Marie.
Special
I just
guest.
thought I would give you the real view since I didn't see it there. So
Hey, there's the monument in the background. Summer, good time to make a road trip. Well, instead of going on screen taking a look at the stocks, let me just talk through them, and then Keith, feel free to chime in. I mean, is every time a wacky time? I mean, it just seems it's crazy. And there's all types of examples of that I'm sure you all can give us some feedback on. You don't have to do a long internet search or jump on your Twitter feed to find some just chaos and like, oh my goodness, is this really happening type stuff out there. But we're in a kind of a wild political scene. Interest rates in our world are the top focus. We're hearing a lot about interest rates. And then Keith, did you know that the new top 7, what they call them, the Mag 7? There was a new name in there that I saw. Did you notice that as well?
I don't know. The name that came to my radar was Baba.
Oh, Baba. No, I hadn't thought of that one, but you know, you have Apple, Amazon, right? Microsoft, Google. How many have I named?
NVIDIA.
Meta, NVIDIA, and the one that I saw as of late was not Netflix, but Eli Lilly.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah, Eli Lilly has joined this group, and here's the I took this away from our friend Mark Minervini, who took it away from a guy named Dan Sullivan, not the strategic coach, but this guy's a chartist, or he's from the Chartist, and he says 7 stocks account for more than 70% of the S&P 500's movement. And then I was originally thinking, okay, yeah, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, you know, but then I saw Lilly in there, and Lilly has been on a run. But of those stocks, NVIDIA has accounted for 27% of the movement. And we've talked about this several times. These are not recommendations to buy these stocks. This is just what's happening out there. And these 7 stocks, plus probably a couple more, account for just huge percentages of an S&P 500 index or the NASDAQ. And typically what we see in the stock market is whatever is causing the momentum upwards eventually has its day where investors say, you know what, this trajectory, it's been great, but there might be something else out there. There might be a shift. And there are interest rate movements could cause that. Political environments could cause that. Regulations could cause that shift, or just money in motion. And so I think we're in a time right now where we're starting to see some of that money in motion change. And if we were to go into a recession, that could have a significant impact on those 7 stocks. Do you have any take on those stocks, Keith?
I don't necessarily on those. I just noticed yesterday there was some really interesting movement on the alternative stocks, the mid-cap stocks, mid-sized companies, and that's kind of what we've been anticipating. We haven't, you know, pounded too heavily investment-wise on it. We've just had our toes in the water there. But yesterday is the first kind of significant day where I saw big selling on those magnificent stocks, and so that may be an indicator. It might have just been a blip on the radar.
Yeah, hard to know. But there is some change happening right now, and so I'm keeping an eye on those stocks. I'm very intrigued by it. There's another survey that I like to follow. I've been following this one for years, and it's a sentiment survey, and it's basically how you feeling is what it's asking. How are you feeling? It asks industry financial professionals like Keith, hey, how do you feel about the stock market? What do you think it's going to do over the next 6 months? Do you think it'll be bullish? Do you think it'll be bearish? And the cowards could respond neutral. But it's been pretty wild to see the bulls coming out. They're about as strong as I've seen them in a long time. And this sentiment survey, it's kind of a contrarian approach, because when the bulls are coming on strong, it typically means that weakness is ahead. And so as we look and we see what's going on in the marketplace, and then we tie that into, what the actual doers are doing, it's pretty interesting to see the bulls as strong as they are. Keith, have you followed up on the VIX at all? Have you seen what's going on? It's been pretty low too, and so we haven't seen a whole lot of movement. And the VIX just measures the ups and downs of the marketplace, and it's those ups and downs that create opportunity for us. We need them. We need that type of ups and downs, and basically it's just tied to the fear that some investors might have and the greed that others might have, and so that's the ups and downs that give us the opportunities.
Well, I think it's an exciting time to be an investor. I think opportunities are out there. I would suggest that if you're heavily weighted in any single security, particularly one that's done really well, like those Magnificent Seven that you mentioned, that you call us and just allow us to help you think through how you can put strategies in place. That there's an old saying in the investment business is that trees don't grow to the sky. And so if something gets mathematically out of whack, it usually will mathematically come back in whack. And so we want to help you preserve what you've gained if you haven't done something already.
There you go. Math wins. You heard it. You heard it here.
Can I tell you a funny, this would be a funny story. Could have been our disclaimer today. So when you travel in hotels, I don't know what your security process is, Doug or Amanda, but mine is to use the lock and the little flip thing, just to make sure we got it all secure. And Casey and I got in our beds and we're locked down, and kept hearing a clackety clack last night. And finally we looked across the space between us, and we were kind of, well, that's weird. And so I finally got up and I looked out the peephole. There was nothing there. And then 10 minutes later or 5 minutes later, clackety clack. And so I pulled the door open as far as the little limiter would let you go. And there was a guy out there trying to get in. I'm like, hey, buddy, this room's already rented. And so I added another new security detail, I think, is putting a do not disturb sign, even if I don't mean it, just to give somebody a heads up. But that was our funny story last night. Be sure to lock your doors.
I can't imagine the Wild West, what it was like back then. Yeah. Well, good word. Well, everybody have a great week. It's July. It's one of the best months of the entire year. So go out and enjoy it. And thanks for tuning in today. We'll catch you next time.
See y'all.
Toodaloo.